Hello, it's Maria here, and today we're going to be painting creatures from the ocean. Using watercolor, we're going to be painting fish and paying attention to all the detail on them. You can paint anything from a goldfish to a shark or very colorful jellyfish. You can also create a huge underwater scene with lots of different types of fish or things like mermaids, pirates, etc. Find a reference of a fish you'd like to paint. You're going to be using watercolor paper today. I'm going to be painting this clownfish because it reminds me of Nemo. Before you think about any details or even the exact shape of the fish, you should measure out how much space it will take up on your paper using a very sketchy oval. Keep your pencil marks extremely light, especially for watercolor, because all your pencil marks will be visible through the watercolor. Once you know how much space your fish will take up, fix the silhouette and add some details. I usually like to erase any extra lines or lighten any dark lines before I paint with watercolor. Whenever you're trying to fill a certain area with watercolor, point the tip of your brush to the outline of this area. Be careful and be precise because it's very hard to erase watercolor where there's not supposed to be any. When you're painting something as vibrant and colorful as a fish, you should use a technique with watercolor where you place down a layer of clear water first and then add the pigment on top. If you place multiple different colors in this area, then they'll blend together very easily and without you doing much else. Remember this extremely important tip for watercolor. Wet paint on wet paint will blend together no matter what. Wet paint on dry paint or on dry paper will have a hard edge to it. Because my clownfish has white stripes, I'm making sure not to get those stripes wet. Instead, I'm leaving an edge around the pattern so that none of the other paint bleeds into this area. As you might have heard before, you should always start light with watercolor and then get darker. For example, if one of the fins on your fish has a very bright highlight to it, you should first paint in that very light area, wait for it to completely dry, and then add darker colors on top. If you mix these light and dark colors, they'll just blend together. And if you place the darker color first, you won't be able to lighten it anymore. Once you finish the base color of your fish, you have to let it completely dry before you add any details. Now that mine is completely dry, I'm going to take a much thinner brush and dip it in some darker colors. Then I'm going to finish up the pattern and add some details onto all the fins. I'm also going to add some shadows below the fish and around the eye. Remember that fish are 3D just like any other animal, and they'll have some shadow, probably on the bottom. My fish didn't have any visible scales, but yours might. If that's the case, take a small brush and draw out some individual scales on some parts of the body. You don't have to do it all over the fish. Once you're done painting your fish, you can also create an interesting background, including bubbles or seaweed. I chose to paint a few bubbles next to my fish. And then I'm done. Now, it's your turn.